This is Dreamtime Science, where tonight's most interesting discoveries become tomorrow's dreams. I've got something particularly engaging to share with you. You know what's fascinating? I've been thinking about how something as simple as a whisper or a melody travels through the air and somehow becomes a story our minds can understand. There's something remarkable about the physics behind sound, how tiny vibrations transform into the rich world of noises and music we hear every day. I can't wait to share some of these quiet wonders with you tonight. If this peaceful blend of science and serenity helps ease your evening, consider joining our community of gentle learners. Share your favorite moment of scientific awe in the comments. First, let's create the perfect space for learning. Cocoon yourself in comfort, release any lingering tension, and let your breath become soft and steady. In the hush of night, when the world softens its daily clamour, there lingers a mysterious presence, a subtle, invisible force that drifts through the air and dances at the edge of our perception. It is sound, the carrier of whispers and thunderclaps alike, the unseen sculptor of experience. We find ourselves surrounded by echoes, both literal and metaphorical, that reach us from every corner of the universe. Tonight we drift gently into this world, the realm of sound, ancient and ever new, where science and story entwine. What is sound, truly? To the physicist, it is a mechanical wave, a pattern of pressure variations that ripple through air, water, or solid stone. Imagine, for a moment, a still pond at dawn. A single pebble, dropped with intention, disturbs the surface, sending concentric circles outward. Each ring is a wave, carrying energy from the point of contact to the distant edge. So it is with sound. When a tree falls in the forest, or a violin string vibrates in a concert hall, air molecules jostle their neighbors in a chain reaction, and the disturbance travels outward, invisible but real, until it reaches a waiting ear. This phenomenon is at once simple and profound. At its core, sound is nothing more than the organized movement of particles, compressions and rarefactions, squeezing together and pulling apart, a pattern that migrates through a medium. Yet from these humble beginnings, a universe of meaning emerges. The soft sigh of a loved one, the warning call of a distant predator, the grand orchestration of a symphony, each is written in the same language of pressure and vibration, yet each resonates differently in the tapestry of our lives. Consider the ancient origins of sound in the evolutionary story. Before language, before music, even before the written word, there was the primal thrum of the world, the rustling of leaves, the crackle of fire, the distant roll of thunder. For early life, sound was a vital sense, a thread connecting creature to environment. The ability to detect the approach of a predator or to communicate with kin across the open savanna could mean the difference between survival and silence. In the fossil record, the evolution of ears, first crude, then ever more refined, speaks of the relentless pressure to tune in to the world's ambient symphony. As humans emerged, we became not just listeners, but creators of sound. Our voices, unique among the animals, developed the intricate musculature and resonant chambers needed to shape air into words, song, and laughter. Early societies marked their rituals with drums and chants, their stories with the rise and fall of the human voice. Sound became culture, a shared currency of emotion and knowledge. It is no wonder, then, that sound has always held a place of reverence and mystery in our collective imagination. The myths of many peoples tell of creation through sound, a spoken word, a cosmic vibration, the music of the spheres. In ancient India, the concept of Om, a primordial vibration, was believed to be the seed from which the universe blossomed. The Greeks spoke of the harmony of the cosmos, an inaudible yet real music woven into the fabric of existence. Even in the silence of space, our minds yearn to hear echoes from the stars, to find in the void a resonance that links us to something greater. Yet, for all its ubiquity, sound is a phenomenon deeply tied to its medium. It cannot travel where there are no particles to carry its message. In the vacuum of space, the drama of a supernova unfolds in utter silence. Its energy radiating outward in forms invisible to the ear. This truth is so fundamental that it became a point of fascination and sometimes playful misdirection in the stories we tell. Science fiction, that fertile ground for dreams and speculation, has long played with the nature of sound. In the early movie serials and pulp novels, spaceship battles were accompanied by the roar of engines and the booming of cannons, as if the blackness between the stars were thick with air. The iconic opening of Star Wars, with its fanfare and the hum of lightsabers clashing, stirs the imagination precisely because it gives voice to the voiceless vacuum. We accept these impossibilities with a wink, for they serve a narrative hunger, the need to feel, through vibration and sound, the grandeur of cosmic adventure. But not all science fiction is content to ignore reality. Some works have turned the silence of space into a source of awe and tension. In the film 2001: A Space Odyssey, moments outside the spacecraft are rendered with a chilling quietude, broken only by the sound of an astronaut's breath within the suit. Here, the absence of sound becomes its own kind of music, amplifying our sense of isolation and wonder. The interplay between truth and storytelling, between what can and cannot be heard, echoes through our cultural imagination. Beyond the realm of fiction, sound has shaped the arc of civilization itself. The earliest technologies were born of the desire to capture and amplify it, the shaping of horns and conch shells into instruments, the carving of resonant chambers in wood and stone. Over centuries, the physics of sound became ever better understood, giving rise to the science of acoustics. Cathedrals were designed to magnify the choir's song, amphitheaters built to carry the actor's voice to every distant seat. In the laboratory, scholars dissected the nature of pitch and timbre, discovering that each note, each vowel, is a tapestry of frequencies woven together. What remarkable complexity lies beneath the surface of even the simplest sound. When we hear a single note on the piano, our ears are not greeting a solitary frequency, but a bouquet of harmonics, overtones layered atop the fundamental pitch, each adding color and richness. The shape of an instrument, the tension of a string, the resonance of a wooden box or metal tube, all conspire to sculpt the final sound. Our brains, marvels of pattern recognition, decode these signals in an instant, allowing us to distinguish the mellow warmth of a cello from the bright shimmer of a flute, even if they play the same note. And what of the voice, that most intimate of instruments? It, too, is an orchestra in miniature, breath flowing from the lungs, shaped by the vocal cords into a buzzing vibration, then sculpted by tongue, lips and teeth into the infinite variety of speech and song. Each voice is unique, a product of anatomy and experience, emotion and intent. Across cultures and epochs, the sound of the human voice has carried love and fear, wisdom and folly, from one generation to the next. Throughout history, people have recognized the power of sound not just to inform, but to transform. In many societies, certain sounds were held to have magical or healing properties: the ringing of bells to ward off evil, the chanting of mantras to focus the mind, the rhythmic beating of drums to bring a community into harmony. Even today, we feel the truth of this in our bones. A favorite song can lift our spirits, a harsh noise can set our nerves on edge. The physics of vibration becomes, at some level, the physics of emotion. This relationship between sound and feeling is no accident. The human ear is exquisitely sensitive, capable of detecting tiny variations in pressure, so small in fact that the faintest sound we can hear moves the eardrum by less than the diameter of a hydrogen atom. Within the cochlea, a spiral-shaped organ deep in the inner ear, thousands of delicate hair cells translate these vibrations into electrical signals, which the brain interprets as sound. The journey from air to ear to consciousness is both mechanical and mystical, a bridge between the world outside and the world within. It is perhaps for this reason that we have so often imbued sound with spiritual significance. In sacred architecture, the acoustics of temples and churches are designed not only to carry the spoken word, but to evoke a sense of awe and transcendence. Gregorian chant, for instance, uses carefully chosen intervals and reverberant spaces to create a sense of timelessness, a sonic tapestry that seems to dissolve the boundary between self and other, earth and heaven. The shofar, the conch, the gong, across continents, across ages, the instruments of ritual have called communities together and marked the passage of sacred time. In modern times, our mastery of sound has grown ever more sophisticated. We have learned to record it, to store the fleeting vibrations on wax cylinders, magnetic tapes, and now as streams of digital information. The invention of the phonograph in the late 19th century was a revelation. For the first time, the voice of the dead could be summoned at will, the songs of distant lands brought into the parlour. The radio, the loudspeaker, the telephone, each invention has extended our reach, allowing sound to cross continents and centuries to become both personal and universal. Yet for all our technological prowess, the essence of sound remains elusive. We can measure its frequency, its amplitude, its speed. We can visualize its waveforms on an oscilloscope or break it into component frequencies with a Fourier transform. But the experience, what it feels like to hear a lover's laugh, or the first raindrops on a tin roof, resists quantification. Sound is at once a fact and a feeling, a vibration in the air and a ripple in the soul. This duality is reflected in the stories we tell and the art we create. Poets speak of the music of the spheres, the notion that the cosmos itself is suffused with a hidden harmony. In quantum mechanics, there are even echoes of this idea. Particles behave like waves, vibrating in fields that span the universe. Some physicists speculate that, at the deepest level, reality itself may be built from the interplay of resonances, fields vibrating in higher dimensions, hidden from ordinary perception. Our fascination with sound extends into the future as well. Scientists and engineers work to develop ever more sensitive detectors, able to pick up the faintest tremors from the farthest reaches of space. The field of gravitational wave astronomy, for instance, is built on the idea that the collision of black holes can send ripples through the very fabric of space-time, echoes from the universe, detectable as subtle vibrations on Earth. These are not sound waves in the traditional sense, for they require no medium, but the language of vibration persists, a reminder that the cosmos is alive with movement and change. In popular culture, sound continues to serve as a bridge between worlds, between the familiar and the unknown, the mundane and the miraculous. The eerie theremin of old science fiction films, the pulsating rhythms of electronic music, the synthetic voices of digital assistants, all are testament to our ongoing fascination with the power of sound. We are, it seems, a species forever attuned to echoes, drawn to the mysteries carried on the air. As you settle deeper into the quiet of this evening, perhaps you sense the gentle hum of life all around, a distant car, the ticking of the clock, the soft rush of your own breath. Each is a reminder that we are surrounded by a web of vibrations, subtle and profound. The science of sound, with all its equations and diagrams, is at heart a study of connection between matter and energy, between mind and world, between past and future. And so, as we lie poised on the threshold of sleep, our ears attuned to the whispers of the night, we are participants in an ancient dance. The echoes from the universe are all around us, waiting to be heard. waiting to be understood. There is much yet to explore about the shapes and travels of sound, about the limits and the wonders of listening. The journey continues as the next vibration begins. Slip quietly with me now into the thicket of sound's true nature, a wilderness more intricate than first appearances betray. The world of sound, at a glance, might seem simple. Vibrations travel, our ears tingle, and the mind fashions meaning. But beneath this apparent simplicity, a symphony of complexity unfolds, one that science has only begun to chart, and where each answered question splinters into new mysteries. Here, the very air around us trembles with invisible dances, and every note, whisper, and thunderclap is a miracle of physics, teetering on the knife edge between order and chaos. Let us begin with the shape of sound itself. In the stillness of a quiet room, you might think the air is at rest, but in truth it is a sea of restless molecules, each jostling against its neighbour. When a violin string is drawn by a bow, or a voice hums a lullaby, it pushes at the air, a tiny nudge that sets off a cascade. Molecules collide, passing their energy like a baton from one to the next. A wave begins, not as a visible undulation, but as a region where air molecules are squeezed close together, followed by a region stretched thin. This alternation of compression and rarefaction ripples outward, forming what we call a longitudinal sound wave. Yet even the word wave can beguile us into oversimplification. A wave is not a thing but a movement, a pattern of change. The air itself does not travel from mouth to ear or from bell to wall. It is only the disturbance, the message that moves through. This is why a thunderclap reaches us long after we see the lightning, and why a shout in the mountains can echo back, transformed but traceable to its birth. Sound, then, is not just a traveller, but a shapeshifter, its face altered by every surface and medium it encounters. To speak of sound, one must invoke frequency, the heartbeat of every note, the measure of its repetition. Frequency, defined in hertz, counts the number of compressions that pass a point each second. Low frequencies lumber along as the deep rumble of a bass drum or the distant growl of thunder. High frequencies skip nimbly, chirping as birdsong or whistling as the wind through pine needles. The human ear, a marvel of biological engineering, is sensitive to frequencies between roughly 20 and 20,000 hertz, though the boundaries blur with age and circumstance. Dogs and bats hear higher still, elephants and whales lower. But what precisely is frequency? It is tempting to imagine it as a simple ticking metronome, counting beats in a regimented line. Yet in practice, most sounds are not pure frequencies, but wild amalgams, waves upon waves, tangled and interlaced. The sound of a single piano note is not a lone frequency, but a host of them, the fundamental which gives the note its pitch, and many overtones, higher frequencies that colour the note, lending it its timbre. This is why a middle C on a piano is so distinct from a middle C on a clarinet, though they share the same fundamental. The overtones sing in different patterns, painting the colour of the sound. The mathematics of these patterns is known as Fourier analysis, named after the French mathematician Joseph Fourier. He discovered that any complex vibration, however ragged or unpredictable, can be decomposed into a sum of simple sine waves, each with its own frequency and amplitude. This realization is as startling as it is profound. Every sound, from the crash of surf to the laughter of a friend, can be described as a symphony of pure tones, woven together into a tapestry. Our ears and brain, evolved over millions of years, are astonishingly adept at disentangling these threads, identifying voices, instruments, and meanings from the tangled air. Yet, for all its explanatory power, Fourier's insight is not the end of the story. Real sounds do not last forever. They begin and end, they swell and fade. Each pluck of a guitar string or tap of a drum, summons a wave that is born, grows, and then dies away. This impermanence introduces further complexity, for the physics of starting and stopping a vibration, its attack and decay, are entwined with its timbre and emotional effect. The violinist's bow might coax a lingering, mournful wail, while a xylophone's note flashes and vanishes, crisp as a drop of rain. The myth persists in popular imagination that sound is a simple matter of pitch and loudness, of how high or low, how soft or strong, but this is a convenient fiction. In reality, sound is a multidimensional phenomenon. Frequency, amplitude, phase, duration, envelope, and spatial location all play their part. Consider phase, a property often overlooked. When two identical sound waves meet, they can add together, reinforcing each other into a louder wave, or they can cancel each other out, producing silence. This is the principle behind noise-cancelling headphones, which generate waves precisely out of phase with ambient noise, weaving silence from the fabric of sound itself. Delving deeper, we encounter resonance, a phenomenon as enchanting as it is fundamental. Resonance occurs when a system is driven to oscillate at its natural frequency, absorbing energy with startling efficiency. Strike a tuning fork and hold it near a piano string tuned to the same pitch. The string will begin to vibrate, as though by magic, sympathetically echoing the fork's song. This is resonance at work. In its purest form, resonance is constructive interference, a kind of handshake between source and receiver where each cycle builds on the last. Yet, resonance is not always benevolent. Soldiers, ordered to break step while crossing bridges, heed the lesson of the Tacoma Narrows, an elegant span torn apart by wind-driven resonance, its oscillations magnified until steel and concrete could bear no more. Resonance is also the secret behind the richness of musical instruments. The hollow body of a guitar or violin is not just a passive shell, but a carefully designed chamber tuned to amplify certain frequencies and suppress others. The air within resonates, reinforcing the instrument's voice and shaping its character. In the human vocal tract, resonance crafts the vowels and consonants of speech, sculpting the raw buzz of the vocal cords into the endless variety of language. But complexity runs deeper still. As sound moves through the world, it encounters boundaries and obstacles, walls, trees, bodies, even the changing weather. Each interface can reflect, absorb, scatter, or refract the wave. Listen to a shout across a canyon, and you hear not just the direct sound, but a choir of echoes, each delayed and coloured by its journey. Enter a cathedral and feel the reverberation, the lingering blend of 1,000 reflections, washing over the listener in a haze of sound. The design of concert halls and auditoriums is a science unto itself, seeking the perfect balance of reflection and absorption, clarity and warmth. There are limits to what we know, and boundaries where our explanations falter. Sound, after all, is not merely a physical event, but a perceptual one. The same wave, heard in different contexts, can evoke fear or comfort, urgency or calm. The phenomenon of psychoacoustics studies how our brains interpret sound, how we localize sources, separate a melody from background noise, or perceive pitch even when the fundamental frequency is absent. The famous missing fundamental illusion reveals that our minds can reconstruct the pitch of a note even when only its overtones are present, as if conjuring something from nothing. Here, the physics of sound blurs into the alchemy of perception, and the boundaries of science grow misty. As we probe the extremes, further puzzles emerge. What is the limit of a sound's loudness, or its faintest whisper? At the upper end, there is the threshold of pain, around 120 decibels, a level that can rupture eardrums and shatter glass. Beyond that, sound becomes a force of destruction, as in the shock waves of explosions or the monstrous roars of rocket launchers. At the lower end, the faintest sounds we can detect are determined by the random jiggle of air molecules, the thermal noise, a whisper of entropy that defines the limits of hearing. And what of the boundary between sound and silence? In the vacuum of space, where no molecules exist to carry the wave, sound cannot travel. The science fiction image of roaring space battles is a myth. In reality, the silence would be absolute. Yet, even here, the universe whispers in other tongues, in electromagnetic waves, in the faint sighs of gravitational ripples, in patterns that our ears cannot hear but our instruments can detect. Delving into the quantum realm, one might ask if sound itself is quantized. The answer, emerging from the mathematics of condensed matter physics, is yes. In the crystalline lattice of a solid, vibrations are carried not by classical waves, but by quantized packets of energy called phonons. These phonons obey the strange rules of quantum mechanics, behaving both as particles and waves, their existence inferred from the collective shiver of atoms. In the icy heart of a crystal, sound is not a continuous ripple, but a procession of discrete echoes, nature's own digital language, hidden from everyday experience. Yet, for all we know, riddles remain. Some animals hear sounds we cannot imagine. Others, like cephalopods, sense vibrations through skin and muscle, bypassing ears altogether. The forest floor teems with creatures communicating in seismic murmurs, while the deep ocean echoes with infrasonic calls that travel for thousands of miles. Our own sense of sound is but a narrow window onto a vast landscape, bounded by biology and built by evolution for survival and song. The Symphony of Complexity is not just a matter of physics, but of context and history. The sound of a bell, for instance, is shaped by its material, its size, its shape, the manner in which it is struck, the air it travels through, the walls it reflects from, and the ears that receive it. Each factor intertwines with the others, creating a cascade of cause and effect that defies simple explanation. No two bells, no two rooms, no two listeners are ever quite the same. In the end, sound is both particle and process, wave and whisper, simple and staggeringly complex. The more closely we listen, the more layers we uncover, each one revealing new intricacies, new connections, and new questions. Like a melody that lingers unresolved, sound invites us to listen deeper, to ask not just how it moves, but what it means. There is much yet to uncover. In the next phase of our journey, we will step from this world of intricate physics into the landscapes shaped by sound, how it carves memory, culture, and emotion, and how living things harness its power in ways both ancient and new. The story of sound is not bounded by science alone. It is woven into the fabric of life, echoing in every chamber of existence, awaiting our attentive ear. In the hush of the centuries, as humanity first began to stretch its senses beyond the mere grasp of survival, the enigma of sound beckoned like a riddle spoken by the world itself. Long before the principles of physics were written down, long before the first mathematical equations etched their symmetry into tablets of clay, there were questions, wordless yet insistent. What is it, this invisible force that can rattle windows, soothe infants, or shatter the silence of night? How does the song of a bird, the thunder's growl, or a whispered secret travel from lips to ear? To decipher the code of sound was to begin the great adventure of scientific inquiry, a journey woven from curiosity, observation, and the slow, patient building of tools. Let us drift gently through the corridors of this unfolding story, each footstep echoing with the efforts and insights of those who, across the ages, have sought to understand what it means for the world to speak. Long ago, in the ancient theatres of Greece, architects noticed an uncanny clarity. Actors' voices seemed to carry effortlessly to the farthest seats, even above the softest murmur of the crowd. Unknown to them, the very shape of the theatre, semicircular, with rows rising steeply, was a grand experiment in acoustics, the geometry of sound. Here, stone and air conspired to focus, reflect, and amplify the actor's words. Though the Greeks did not quantify these phenomena, they felt their effects, and their theatres became the first laboratories of sound. Centuries later, in the candlelit chambers of Renaissance Europe, scholars turned a sharper eye to such mysteries. Galileo, with his penchant for timing and rhythm, pondered the pitch of strings and the nature of vibrations. One could almost see him, brow furrowed, plucking at a lute and watching as the string quivered, the motion fading gradually into stillness. He suspected, astutely, that the height of a note corresponded to the speed of the vibration, higher notes, faster trembling, lower notes, slower. There was a hidden regularity here, a pattern waiting to be made explicit. But how to measure the invisible, the intangible? The early investigators fashioned instruments from the familiar materials of their world. Tuning forks, simple two-pronged bars of metal, were struck and set humming. Their regular movements made sound visible in a sense. When pressed against a tabletop, they caused a cascade of tiny grains, sand, salt, or powder, to shiver in intricate patterns. These experiments hinted at the mechanical heart of sound, a dance of particles set in motion by an initial disturbance. The Frenchman Félix Savart, in the early 19th century, devised a spinning-toothed wheel to probe the threshold between clicks and continuous tones. As the wheel turned faster and faster, a stick held gently against its teeth generated a series of rapid clicks, at first distinct, then merging into a low hum, and finally a clear, steady note. By counting the teeth and the revolutions, Savart could calculate with surprising accuracy the frequency of the sound. This was a triumph not just of ingenuity, but of a new kind of thinking. Sound could be measured, counted, and described in numbers. It was no longer a ghostly messenger from the world beyond. It was a phenomenon with rules. The process of decoding sound demanded new ways of seeing. In 1807, the English scientist Thomas Young performed a simple yet revelatory experiment. He gently scattered sand atop a taut horizontal plate. A glass or metal surface stretched tight like a drum. Then, drawing a violin bow along the edge, he set the plate vibrating. Before his eyes, the sand leapt and shivered, arranging itself into beautiful, symmetrical patterns, each one unique to the frequency of the vibration. These were the first Chladni figures, named for the German physicist Ernst Chladni, who would refine the method and astound audiences across Europe with demonstrations that bordered on the magical. The significance of these patterns was profound. They revealed the underlying structure of sound, the way certain frequencies could set up stable standing waves in a solid object. The sand traced out the quiet places, the nodes where the plate did not move, sketching a visual map of the otherwise invisible. Here was sound made manifest, its geometry inscribed on the surface of the world. As science pressed onward, the need for greater precision inspired the invention of ever more sensitive devices. The chronoscope, the tuning fork, the siren disc, all these contrivances sought to capture, to quantify, to render the ephemeral into the concrete. The 19th century, with its spirit of mechanical invention, was a golden age for the study of acoustics. Hermann von Helmholtz, a German polymath, created resonators, hollow spheres of glass or metal, each finely tuned to a particular frequency. When exposed to a complex sound, only the resonator matching a component frequency would hum in sympathy. By listening for these subtle responses, Helmholtz could analyze the composite nature of tones. Music, voice, even the clatter of daily life, all became accessible to analysis, their sonic threads teased apart. It is worth pausing to appreciate the leap of imagination here. Until this moment, the world of sound was thought to consist of indivisible notes, each unique. Helmholtz's experiments revealed a deeper truth. Every sound was a tapestry woven from countless pure tones, each with its own frequency and intensity. The harmonics of a violin, the timbre of a bell, the human voice's subtle colorations, all owed their character to the interplay of these hidden components. It is as if every sound was not a single color, but a spectrum, and the ear was a prism decoding it. With the coming of electricity, the study of sound entered a new era. The telephone, invented by Alexander Graham Bell, relied on transforming sound waves into electrical signals and back again, a feat that demanded a precise understanding of both acoustics and electromagnetism. The microphone, the loudspeaker, the phonograph, each was a triumph of decoding and encoding, a bridge between the world of air and the world of wire. Thomas Edison's phonograph, for instance, etched the vibrations of sound into the grooves of a spinning cylinder. A stylus, trembling in response to the air's pressure, scratched an undulating track into wax. To play back the sound, the process was reversed. The stylus followed the groove, vibrating in sympathy, and those vibrations were amplified into audible sound. For the first time, the fleeting waves in air could be trapped, stored, and made to speak again. The very act of listening was transformed from a momentary experience to something that could be revisited, repeated, analyzed in detail. Yet the true language of sound, its mathematical grammar, remained to be fully unraveled. Enter Jean-Baptiste Joseph Fourier, a French mathematician who, in the early 19th century, proposed an idea both simple and profound. Any complex vibration, he said, could be decomposed into a sum of pure sine waves, each with its own frequency, amplitude, and phase. This was the birth of Fourier analysis, a tool that would become central to the modern study of sound. The implications of this insight ripple through the centuries. By breaking down a sound into its constituent frequencies, one could peer into the very fabric of its identity. The clang of a bell, the crash of a wave, the syllables of speech, all are in essence the sum of many simple oscillations, layered and interwoven. In the 20th century, with the advent of the electronic oscilloscope, this process could finally be witnessed in real time. On a glowing screen, sound waves danced as luminous traces, their forms revealing pitch, volume, and complexity. The journey from the ancient amphitheatre to the modern laboratory is a tapestry of evolving tools and ever-deepening understanding. The stethoscope, an instrument so simple and so profound, allowed physicians to listen to the inner music of the body, the lub-dub of the heart, the whisper of breath, the rush of blood. Here, too, was the deciphering of a code, this time the language of life itself, transmitted through the medium of flesh and fluid. Sound, once an invisible ghost, became a phenomenon to be mapped, measured, and manipulated. Engineers learned to shape concert halls for perfect acoustics, designing every curve and surface to guide the waves of sound just so. The science of psychoacoustics emerged, probing the mysteries of human perception. Why do certain intervals please the ear, while others jar? Why does a minor chord evoke sadness, or a dissonant cluster unease? The answers, it turned out, lay not only in the physics of vibration, but in the labyrinthine circuits of the brain. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, the study of sound became ever more entwined with computation. Digital signal processing, an offspring of Fourier's vision, made it possible to sample, store, and manipulate sound in ways that would have astonished the pioneers. Music could be dissected, remixed, and synthesized. Speech could be recognized by machines. The subtle echoes of distant sonar pings could reveal the contours of the ocean floor. Yet, for all the sophistication of our tools, the essence of sound's mystery persists. Consider the experiments of John William Strutt, Lord Rayleigh, who in the late 19th century filled a large, thin-walled tube with sound and measured the standing waves within by sprinkling lycopodium powder along its length. The powder danced into piles at the nodes, points of stillness, while the air between was alive with motion. Here, in a slender glass tube, was the same principle that governs the music of an organ pipe, the resonance of a violin, the timbre of a human voice. The investigation of sound has also demanded a careful parsing of the ear's own capacities. In the darkened rooms of early laboratories, subjects were asked to discern the faintest whisper, the smallest difference in pitch, the shortest gap between two notes. The just noticeable difference, the threshold of hearing, the range of frequencies detectable, these became quantifiable properties, charted on graphs and tables. Through such work, the boundaries of human perception were mapped, revealing both our remarkable sensitivity and our inherent limitations. In more recent times, the code of sound has been explored not just in air, but in other media. Underwater, sound travels faster and farther. In solids, its speed and behavior depend on the stiffness and density of the material. Seismologists listen to the rumblings of the earth, decoding tremors and quakes through networks of sensitive detectors. The principles are the same: vibrations, frequencies, waves, each medium lending its own character to the song. Perhaps the most elegant of all experiments is the double-slit demonstration with sound, echoing its famous optical counterpart. When two sources emit sound waves of the same frequency, their overlapping patterns create zones of reinforcement and cancellation, loud and quiet regions, like ripples on a pond, converging and diverging. The careful mapping of these patterns confirms, beyond doubt, the wave nature of sound, a truth glimpsed by Galileo and Chladni, but now laid bare with mathematical precision. The quest to decipher the sonic code has been and remains a story of both inspiration and labor. Each tool, a fork, a wheel, a resonator, a microphone, has extended our reach, turning the unseen into the observable. Each experiment, whether performed in glittering concert halls or humble workshops, has chipped away at the boundaries of ignorance. Yet, as we drift quietly through this gallery of inquiry, it becomes clear that every answer breeds new questions. For what is sound, finally, but a bridge between matter and mind, between the world and the self? To decode its message is to glimpse not just the structure of waves, but the shape of our own wonder. And in the soft hush that follows each discovery, there is always the promise of another layer, another secret yet to be revealed. So let us pause, suspended in this moment of exploration, as the tools and experiments of the past whisper their stories to us. Beyond the laboratory walls, the world continues to sing, inviting us onward, to the next mystery, the next unfolding note. In the gentle hush of the evening, as the world's bustle softens into a tapestry of distant noises, rustling leaves, the glimmer of a far-off dog's bark, the hum of a refrigerator perhaps, you become acutely aware of sound not merely as a feature of your environment, but as a mysterious companion. It is both a presence and an absence, woven into the fabric of existence, sometimes so familiar that it slips unnoticed into the background, and yet, when attended to, reveals itself as one of the most profound links that bind us to the world, to others, and to ourselves. Sound, after all, is not simply a physical phenomenon. It is the universe in motion, made intimate. When a bell rings, when a voice speaks, when a footfall echoes down an empty corridor, it is not only air that moves, it is the invisible bridge between a source and a receiver, between intention and perception, between solitude and communion. Think for a moment of what it means to speak and to be heard. The vibrations of your vocal cords, subtle oscillations born deep within your chest, are sculpted by the shapes your mouth and tongue create, and then flung outward in invisible, concentric ripples. These ripples, these undulations of air pressure, travel outward, often colliding with the listening ear of another. There, within the spiral labyrinth of the cochlea. They are transduced into patterns of neural activity. In the blink of a thought, what was once mere vibration becomes meaning, emotion, memory, a thread woven into the mind of another. How remarkable it is that we are built not only to emit these signals, but to receive and interpret them. The human brain, with its intricate architecture, is exquisitely tuned to the nuances of sound. It can discern the subtlest change in pitch, or the faintest whisper amid a cacophony of noise. It can recognize the voice of a loved one in the dark, or the distant rumble of thunder long before a storm arrives. Our auditory system is not passive. It is an active participant in the world, constantly searching, filtering, enhancing, and at times even imagining sounds that are not there. From the first cries of an infant, an urgent call that ensures the presence of another, to the last murmured words at the end of a life, sound is the vessel of our deepest needs and our greatest joys. In the quiet spaces between, it carries laughter, music, the rhythms of poetry, the murmurs of comfort, the sharp bark of alarm, the shared cadences of conversation. It is the medium through which we declare ourselves, through which we are recognized, through which we reach across the chasm of isolation and say, "I am here. Are you there?" But sound is more than a human affair. Step outside the confines of your own experience, and you enter a world saturated with signals. The song of a bird at dawn is not simply a pleasing melody, but an assertion of territory, a declaration of fitness, a beacon to a mate. The chirp of a cricket encodes the temperature of the night air. The low, resonant calls of whales traverse the vastness of the oceans, carrying messages that may travel for hundreds of miles, perhaps longer than the span of a human life. Bats paint pictures of the night with bursts of ultrasound, each echo a brushstroke in an invisible landscape. Even the earth itself, restless and ancient, groans and shudders with seismic waves, the deep sound of continents shifting in their sleep. In all of these examples, sound is at once a tool and a testament, a way for living things to navigate, to warn, to attract, to remember. There is a haunting beauty in this, the realization that the world is never truly silent, that every corner brims with waves in motion, some audible, some not, all evidence of a universe in ceaseless dialogue with itself. There is, too, a philosophical paradox in the nature of sound. It is, by definition, ephemeral. A wave of pressure, once created, is always in the process of vanishing. The instant a sound is made, it begins to fade, dissipating energy into its surroundings, until all that remains is memory, a ghostly imprint in the mind. Unlike a painting or a written word, sound cannot be fixed in place. It must be experienced in time. It insists on presence, on the here and now. To listen is to be anchored in the present moment, to surrender to the unfolding of time, to accept the inevitability of loss as each sound slips away. Yet, for all its transience, sound possesses a kind of immortality. Through the act of listening, it is resurrected. The melody that moves you, the voice that soothes you, the story that captivates you, these live on, not in the air, but in the mind and in culture. They are passed down from one generation to the next, not through preservation of substance, but preservation of pattern, of rhythm, of meaning. Consider music, that most elusive and profound of human arts. Its raw materials are nothing more than organized vibrations, structured in time, yet it evokes emotions so powerful they can alter the course of a life. A lullaby sung to a child, a national anthem swelling in a crowded stadium, a requiem echoing through a cathedral, these are not merely sounds, but vessels of memory, identity, belonging. Through music, we transcend the limits of language, touching something elemental and ancient within us. The physicist and the poet alike are moved by the same chords, the same intervals, the same uncanny sense that within the rise and fall of a melody there is hidden some secret order, some whisper of the cosmos itself. There are those who have wondered whether music, or even all sound, is a kind of echo of the universe's own beginnings. The ancient Greeks spoke of the music of the spheres, imagining that the planets, in their celestial courses, generated harmonies too subtle for mortal ears. In a more modern sense, we know that the universe began with a great expansion, the Big Bang, a cosmic event that sent waves rippling outward, some of which still reverberate as faint, primordial whispers in the cosmic microwave background. In this way, the universe itself is a vast, resonant body, oscillating across scales beyond our comprehension. It is tempting to imagine that every sound, no matter how small, is a descendant of those first vibrations, a local manifestation of a universal principle. When you speak, when you sing, when you strike a drum, you are stirring the air in patterns that echo the earliest movements of matter itself. Your voice, unique among all who have lived, is a consequence of the shape of your body, the configuration of your tissues, the stories encoded in your DNA. It is an expression of your individuality, and yet it partakes of something universal, the laws that govern wave propagation, the physics of resonance, the mathematics of harmony. Sound, then, is both a marker of difference and a medium of connection. It allows us to announce ourselves as distinct and to blend ourselves into the chorus of others. It is the means by which we are alone and the means by which we are together. In the hush of a concert hall, as the orchestra begins to play, 1,000 hearts beat in anticipation, and then, at the first note, they are bound together by a wave of sound that enfolds them all. In the quiet of a bedroom, a whispered secret draws two people into a universe of their own making. In the clamour of a marketplace, voices rise and fall, each one a filament in the web of human society. This invisible connection extends beyond the realm of the living. Sound links us to the past, to the long-vanished voices of ancestors, to the echoes recorded on wax cylinders and magnetic tape, to the stories told around fires in the deep night. Through the magic of technology, we reach across centuries, hearing the laughter and sorrow of those who came before us. The earliest known musical instrument, a flute carved from the bone of a bird, still bears the marks of its maker's hands, and if played, would release into the air a melody last heard thousands of years ago. In that moment, time collapses, the past becomes present. A life long ended finds its voice once more. There is an existential solace in this realization. To make a sound is to leave a mark, however fleeting. The world is changed, if only for an instant, by your presence. Think of the comfort people find in singing together, in chanting, in the ritual repetition of prayers or mantras. These are not random behaviors, but deep-seated responses to the human need for connection, for affirmation, for a sense of belonging to something larger than oneself. The act of voicing, of listening, of responding, these are foundational to our sense of being alive, of being part of the world, of being recognized. And yet, for all its power, sound's most profound gift may be found in its invitation to listen. In a culture saturated with noise, true listening is a rare and radical act. To listen is to attend not just to the surface of things, but to their depths. It is to become receptive, to allow oneself to be moved, to be changed. It is to grant space for the other, to acknowledge the reality of another's voice, another's experience. In this act, barriers dissolve, and a genuine encounter becomes possible. There is a story told among certain desert peoples that the wind, as it moves across the sand, carries with it the voices of all who have ever lived. If you are quiet, and if you listen with your whole being, you may hear the songs of your ancestors, the laughter of lost friends, the wisdom of the ages. Whether or not this is literally true is beside the point. The truth is deeper. The world is alive with sound, and in that sound is the echo of all that has come before and all that will ever be. In the depths of the ocean, where sunlight never reaches, there are creatures who navigate by sound alone. Clicks, whistles, pulses, each a signal sent into the dark, each a question posed to the world. Is anyone there? Can you hear me? The answer, when it comes, is a lifeline, a confirmation of existence. So it is with us. We send our voices out into the world, not knowing who will hear, not knowing what will return, but trusting, hoping that across the invisible gulf, someone, somewhere, will answer. As you lie in the darkness, the quiet settling around you like a soft cloak, notice the subtle symphony that persists, the rhythm of your breath, the thrum of your heartbeat, the distant murmur of the world outside your window. These are the sounds of being alive, the evidence of your presence, the proof that, for this moment, you are part of the great, ongoing song of existence. Somewhere in the night, a nightingale pours out its heart. The song is not for you, and yet, in hearing it, you are changed. The boundaries between self and world, between here and elsewhere, grow thin. Sound has done what it always does. It has reached across the divide. It has connected. It has called forth a response. There are mysteries yet to be understood. The way the brain weaves sound into the tapestry of consciousness, the reason certain melodies haunt us, the manner in which silence itself is shaped by the sounds that precede and follow it. Each question is an invitation, a beckoning toward deeper listening, toward a more intimate encounter with the world. And as the night deepens, as the last echoes of the day fade into stillness, the universe hums on, its waves and vibrations continuing their ancient dance. Somewhere, a distant star explodes, sending ripples through the cosmic sea. Somewhere else, a child is born, taking in its first breath, preparing to issue its first cry. The story of sound, its physics, its poetry, its power to connect and transform, is far from over. It will continue as long as there are ears to hear, voices to call, hearts to listen. As our journey through the shimmering waves of sound gently drifts to a close, may the melodies of the universe linger softly like a comet tail, fading into the hush of space. Rest now in the quiet wonder of what you hear, and when your heart yearns for more Dreamtime tales, we'll be waiting to explore the next cosmic mystery together.